Okay, so you own a gas station. You're sitting on a corner lot that every driver in town passes, selling a product people cannot function without. Open 24 hours a day. It sounds like a license to print money. It is, instead, one of the most punishing small businesses in America, and the reason has almost nothing to do with the price of oil. By the end of this, you'll understand why the thing you're named after barely pays you, why your customers and sometimes your own employees steal from you, why the banks take a cut that can rival your entire profit on a tank of gas, and why the ground beneath your feet is a liability that never sleeps. Let's start with the wound that never closes, your margin on fuel. The average American gas station earns roughly 3 to 7 cents of net profit per gallon sold. Not per dollar, per gallon. On a $3.50 gallon, you're keeping under 2 cents of every dollar the customer hands you. Everything else goes to the fuel supplier, to federal and state taxes baked into the price, and to the cost of running the equipment that pumped it. You are, functionally, a volunteer tax collector and a delivery mechanism for an oil company, compensated in pennies. Now here's what makes that genuinely miserable, rather than merely thin. You take all the blame for a price you don't set. When fuel prices spike, customers are furious, and they're furious at you, standing at your counter, because you're the only human being in the supply chain they can actually see. But the price on your sign is a pass-through. When wholesale costs rise, you raise the pump price. When they fall, you lower it. Your few cents stay the same either way. The profiteering people imagine is happening at your register is happening, if anywhere, at the refinery and distribution level. You absorb the anger from margins captured by companies the customer will never meet, and you have no ability to differentiate yourself. Gasoline is the purest commodity in retail. The fuel in your tanks is chemically identical to the fuel across the street. Customers choose almost entirely on price and convenience, which means you cannot build loyalty the way a restaurant or a shop can. A competitor opening on the opposite corner or simply posting a price 2 cents lower can move your volume overnight through no failure of yours. Then there's the cut you never see coming: credit card processing. Think about the math for a moment. A customer fills up for $60. Card processing fees typically run somewhere around 2% of the transaction, which on that sale is more than $1. Your net profit on those, say, 17 gallons at 5 cents apiece is about 85 cents. Read that again. On a normal fill-up paid by card, the payment processor can earn more from the transaction than you do. This is the structural absurdity at the center of the business, and it's why you'll see stations posting separate cash and credit prices, because that spread is often the difference between making money on a sale and losing it. Even that workaround is constrained. Several states ban credit card surcharging outright, and where it is permitted, the card networks impose rules about how it can be applied, with additional complications because many pump systems can't cleanly distinguish credit from debit at the moment of authorization. So the obvious fix to an obviously broken cost structure is itself a legal minefield that varies by state. And processing gets worse from there because fuel is one of the most complicated categories in payments. Transactions have to be coded correctly, pumps have to be certified to current security standards, and pre-authorization holds have to clear properly. Get any of it wrong and your transactions qualify at worse rates, quietly costing you money on every sale. Worse, stations running non-compliant pump hardware now carry the fraud liability on counterfeit card transactions at those dispensers, liability that used to sit with the card issuing bank. So an owner who hasn't upgraded their pumps isn't just risking a fine, they're personally absorbing fraud losses that used to be someone else's problem. Which brings us to theft, and this is where owning a gas station stops being a financial complaint and becomes a genuinely grim way to spend your life. Your product is a liquid sitting outside, in the open, dispensed by machines, available to anyone who pulls up. So people steal it. The classic version is the drive-off, where a customer pumps fuel and simply leaves without paying. Individually, these are small, often around $50 an incident, more when it's a large vehicle, but they add up to thousands of dollars per store annually, and they scale directly with fuel prices, meaning the theft gets worse precisely when your costs are highest. At the national level, gasoline drive-off losses have run into the hundreds of millions of dollars. The uglier truth is what happens when someone tries to stop it. There's a reason British Columbia has a law mandating prepayment at fuel pumps, and the reason is that a teenage gas station employee named Grant DiPacia was killed in 2005 trying to stop a driver from leaving without paying for $12 of fuel. He was struck and dragged. The law is named after him. Station owners in other regions have described drivers attempting to run them over during confrontations over stolen fuel, and police forces have spent thousands of hours responding to drive-off calls. So when you own a gas station, loss prevention isn't an abstract line item. It's the question of whether the 19-year-old working your night shift is going to chase someone into traffic over $40 of gasoline. And theft doesn't only come from outside. Employee theft is a documented, persistent part of the problem, including attendants who pocket cash payments and falsely report them as drive-offs. That's a particularly corrosive kind of loss, because it means the person you hired, trained and trusted to protect your inventory is a plausible source of its disappearance, and the reporting system you rely on to measure theft is the same system being used to conceal it. Then there's skimming, where criminals install devices on your pumps to harvest customers' card data. When it happens, your station becomes the crime scene, your brand takes the reputational hit, and you deal with the fallout with customers who are victimized on your property, whether or not you did anything wrong. Now layer on the labor problem, because it's relentless. Your business is open around the clock, which means you're staffing overnight shifts in a retail environment that handles cash and sits on a road at 3 in the morning. These are low-wage, high-turnover positions, and asking someone to work them alone at night in a job where robbery is a real occupational hazard produces exactly the hiring and retention difficulty you'd expect. You are perpetually recruiting, perpetually training, and perpetually covering shifts yourself when someone doesn't show. And every new hire is a fresh risk, because you are handing a near stranger the keys to your register, your inventory, and your reporting. Background screening helps, but doesn't eliminate the exposure. And the constant churn means you rarely get to build the kind of long-tenured, trusted staff that makes theft harder in the first place. Many station owners end up working brutal hours in their own store not because they want to, but because there's no one else to stand behind the counter. And here's the cruelest structural fact of all. The fuel isn't even the business. In-store sales now account for a large and growing share of gas station revenue, and the margins inside on coffee, snacks, drinks, and food are dramatically better than the 2% you make on fuel. A customer who buys a $4 coffee hands you more profit than their entire tank of gas did, which means the $2 million of pumps, canopy, and underground infrastructure you invested in exists primarily as an expensive customer acquisition device for a convenience store. You didn't buy a fuel business. You bought a shop, plus an enormous, hazardous, capital-intensive marketing expense bolted to the front of it. And that hazardous part is the liability that should keep any owner awake. Beneath your lot sit underground storage tanks with a useful life of roughly 25 to 30 years, and a large share of stations in the country have tanks approaching or past that age. They corrode, they crack, they leak. And when they do, fuel migrates through soil into groundwater. Under federal law, the party in control of the property when the leak occurs is liable for the cleanup, not the previous owner, not the oil company, you. The EPA has put the average cleanup of a leaking tank at around $154,000, with groundwater contamination cases running from the hundreds of thousands into over $1 million. and there remain tens of thousands of leaking tank sites nationwide awaiting full remediation. A slow underground leak is invisible from the street, which means you can buy a station and inherit a six-figure environmental obligation that only surfaces years later. This is why environmental due diligence before buying, soil testing, and site assessments running roughly $15,000 to $20,000 isn't optional paperwork. It's the difference between acquiring a business and acquiring a cleanup order. Federal rules also require owners to carry substantial insurance against tank leaks, and for stations with aging tanks, that coverage can be punishingly expensive or hard to obtain at all. So let's add up what you actually own. A product that earns you pennies per gallon while customers blame you for its price. A payment system that can take more from a transaction than you keep. A liquid inventory sitting outdoors that people steal from you, sometimes violently, and that your own staff can quietly siphon through falsified reports. A round-the-clock staffing burden in a job a few people want. A convenience store that's the only reason the whole thing works, attached to millions of dollars of fuel infrastructure that mostly exists to bring people to the door. And underneath all of it, aging steel tanks holding a federal liability that follows the deed straight to you. That's why owning a gas station sucks. Not because the business fails. It usually doesn't. Plenty of owners take home a real living. It's that the living is earned in 2-cent increments, defended against theft on multiple fronts, staffed at 3 in the morning, and secured against an environmental risk that could erase a decade of profit in a single remediation order. You're not running a fuel business. You're running a small, exhausting, around-the-clock war of attrition on a piece of contaminated until proven otherwise real estate. And the pumps out front, the thing your sign advertises and your money bought, are the least profitable part of the whole operation.